And this, we're just hooking them on this drug. They lose their sparkle. What do we do? What do you do if the teacher says your child has ADHD? Well, you have to do three different things. First, you need to yourself say, does my kid have a problem? Is my kid a problem? If your child is not a problem at all, going out to dinner with you, going to the movies with you, hanging out with you, playing games with you, watching videos, you know, except as kids are problems, which is every day, sometime every day, a few times every day. But I mean, it's just not always a horrible problem. If that's not the case, then there's nothing wrong with the child, even if the school thinks so, because it's the same kid. Same kid. Problems in the school. Is the school. Now, if your child is out of control at home, then it's your problem. You have to learn how to discipline and love and help this particular child. Now, you may say, as I wanted to say with every one of my children, but I did better with the other one, so it must be your fault. But that's not true. Every kid's different. I mean, can you imagine being a mother trying to raise somebody like me or Diane? Poor parents. Some kids are easy. Some kids aren't easy. Some kids are just so marvelous that any parent would have trouble raising them. Some kids are so beaten down that any parent could raise them with ease. They've been so injured along the way somehow, maybe not even by you, the parent. So many things injure our kids. You could have a kid that was crazy, and you could be a wonderful parent, because the coach could be molesting him, the minister could be molesting him, the bus driver could be molesting him, the neighborhood child could be molesting him. We live in a society in which children are very unsafe. So you could have a kid in trouble, and you could be a good parent. But it's your job as the parent to figure it out. We are responsible. One of the most horrible things this fake diagnosis has done is that its disempowered teachers and disempowered parents made us think that our kids are unreachable. Do you know every time you call your kid ADHD and give him a drug, you've said he is biologically incorrigible and unreachable by normal human means? That's what you have said. You have said that. The doctor has said that. The doctor has said, on the basis of a report from a teacher, maybe second or third hand through you, that your child is unteachable by ordinary means. It's bizarre. Who says? What kind of means? My daughter, Alicia, who is my adopted daughter, she's my wife's daughter, and she asked me to adopt her when she was about 14. She entered her senior year of this wonderful high school we have, Bethesda Chevy Chase High School. Chevy Chase High School. It's supposed to be a really great school, you know. She came back in tears, first day of her senior year, and she said, do you know that this is the opposite of everything we're supposed to believe? Do you know the teachers don't respect the students don't respect the teachers, all the children, all the kids are compulsive. She said they're either compulsive about sex or studies or sports or drugs. There's no feeling, there's no relating, there's no caring. And I said something to her I never thought I would say in my whole life. I said, would you rather not go to school? We can figure out a way to homeschool you for your senior year. She said, oh, thank God. So my daughter has graduated from the University of North Dakota with a high school degree. I never thought I'd do anything like that. I used to think, why, this is the real world. That's nonsense. The real world is a world of individual creativity, increasingly even working alone at home. It's a world where people innovate or get nowhere. It's a world of initiative and autonomy. It is the opposite world from our schools. It's literally the opposite. We're increasingly going to see that the Bill Gateses of the world, who are really changing this world, were not people who went very far in school. It's incompatible with what the modern world requires in the way of genuine creativity. It's not incompatible, I guess, with, you know, being forced into some real low-level wage earning where you have to stand on an assembly line, I guess. So what do you do as a parent? You size up the situation. If your child is so out of control that there's a problem, then you just need parenting, education, and you need to review what could be going on in your kid's life. You need to really spend time. When we saw what was going on with our daughter in our school system and in our community, where there was no place for teenagers to go, where there wasn't all drugs and alcohol, do you know in my wealthy Bethesda community what parents do? They go away for the weekend and leave teenagers to have drinking parties for the weekend. I mean, that's what they do in my hometown. And we're supposed to be enlightened. We ended up staying home every single weekend during her teen years. Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon. In fact, we realized we must be doing this quite regularly when we had a big snow. We had something like 20 teenagers snowed in for 3 days. And they were respectful. And some of these were pretty upset kids. Because after all, a lot of them just had no place else to go, so they come to the Breggins. What are you going to do tonight? Well, we're going to the Breggins. Can't drink there, can't smoke there. We can smoke. They used to be able to smoke there, not anymore. I mean, they'd come to our house. Because there was no place else to go except the AA meetings. That's where a lot of the kids were going for some sort of community. There was nowhere else, literally no place else to go. In our community, wealthy community. So what do? You decide that being parenting is the most important, toughest job in the whole world. I do a lot of things. I take on Eli Lilly. I take on the drug companies. I treat patients without drugs who are hallucinating. There's nothing as tough as being a parent. And to accept that responsibility is an enormous responsibility and a gift from God, and we should treat it as such and not drug the treasure. But do whatever we have to do with our lives to make it a world in which that child can live peacefully. And it takes insight, and it takes thinking and talking, and if you don't have a husband at home, then you probably, if you have a boy, you probably ought to find some young man to get involved in his life and help you out. It takes a huge amount of effort. You just can't put a kid on a drug and then raise him conveniently. It's not the right thing to do. I changed my travel schedule during those years. In fact, what I did was I never traveled with my wife anymore. We never left her alone. We found out that leaving a teenager alone in our community is not a very good idea, even if it's at her best friend's house. My son Ben probably wouldn't mind my saying. They wanted to call Ben something, or ADHD. I think it was ADHD in school, public school he was going to. Well, we happened to be in an odd situation where we could go to one of two districts. So we went over to the next district and it had a male teacher in the same grade. We went in and we said, this is what our kid Ben's doing in the other school. He said, sounds like a boy to me. Well, we brought Ben in the new school. He never had a problem of that kind. Kids all have problems. I have problems. Who doesn't have problems? But he never again had anybody wanting to diagnose him. He's the boy who said, you know, Dad, your voice is darker. He needed a guy at that age. That was all. But instead of figuring out what the needs of our children are, we're drugging them. And the needs of a child labeled ADHD could be anything, because it's not a disease. It literally could be the child is superior intelligence and bored, the child doesn't have the capabilities for the grade and is frustrated. It could be either extreme. It could be that the child has a tremendous amount of energy and should never in his entire life ever have to sit bored in a room of 30. It makes me crazy to sit in a room unless it's exciting with other people. I mean, if I'm not leading it, it better be exciting. I mean, I can't stand it. And I just start looking, you know. I don't know what to do with myself, sitting in a group with nothing interesting happening. I hated school. I was great at it. I didn't enjoy it until I got to college. It could be anything. Rarely is it going to be a disease, but if it is, your psychiatrist and pediatrician will miss it because they're just doing a checklist. They're not even examining him. They're going to miss if he's got a brain tumor. They're going to miss if he's hypothyroid or got a head injury. And they're certainly going to miss it if the gym teacher is sexually abusing him. And so are you, because you got a checklist. That checklist is just a way of giving up being a parent or a teacher and drugging the kid who's showing a need for our attention. I mean, why would a kid be jumping up to interrupt, the number one sign of impulsivity, unless he needed attention? Wanted to show you he was there. I mean, why would a kid not pay attention to what you were saying? Unless he couldn't bear it for some reason. Or whatever. I'm being simple-minded about it. It could be so many things, but it's not a disease. And it has much more to do with us than with the children. That's the key. It's about us. It would be like if, when I'm teaching at Hopkins, if, 10% of my class got fidgety, so I diagnosed them. Instead of standing up and getting their attention. And let me tell you, teachers don't know any more than psychiatrists now. By the way, never, I'm making a blanket statement, unless you have some real reason to think I'm wrong about a particular doctor, never take a child to a physician for anything that has to do with the child's mental life or behavior. Physicians don't know anything about that. Being a pediatrician or a psychiatrist doesn't mean you love kids. Have you ever met a psychiatrist? Have you ever dated one? Ever tried to love one? It's not easy. We're a very injured group because we commit such terrible things on people. We diagnose them and drug them and shock them, and we all do it or you don't get through your training. They'll fire you if you don't do shock treatment. These are not the people who are going to help you with your children. You'll do much better off looking for maybe a psychologist or a counselor, family therapist, a minister, a neighbor, a friend, somebody who's raised 5 kids and you think their kids are doing well. Spend a little time with them. There's no reason to think your pediatrician is anything but an axe murderer. There's no reason. How do you know your pediatrician is one of the world's worst abusers? There's no reason. The medical license conveys nothing in the way of a loving knowledge of humanity on a person. To bring a child to a pediatrician to find out if he should have Ritalin, it would be like, taking royalty to Robespierre to see if they should have their heads come off. Is that too abstract? A little bit. But that's what it's like. We're in charge. We have to figure out what our kids need. We have to do it. And we shouldn't be disempowered by people like me, by medical doctors in this process. And it may be that a child will need a private school, but then you got to pick that carefully, or homeschooling, or a combination. But don't let them pour toxins into your child's brain during the growth years. You're going to be fighting your child doing it to themselves when they're 17. Why haven't started when they're 5? Same drugs. They are the same drugs.